like that. She snapped her fingers. You know, I also took a semester of psychology in college. I love trying to figure out what people are really thinking and doing, and their reason behind it. If I recall correctly, Lawrence said, tilting his head slightly, didn't you fail that course and ended up dropping it altogether instead of retaking it? Paris tilted her head in the opposite direction from his as she smirked. Daddy, I told you what an awful professor Miss Booth was. That woman just didn't like me. Paris widened her light brown eyes as she spoke. If you want the real truth, Miss Booth didn't care much for you, so she ended up taking her dislike for you out on me. Lawrence shook his head. Always an excuse. When it comes to you in trouble, it's always someone else's fault. It's never anything that you may have done. Well, that wasn't an excuse. She also didn't care for me because I was the third runner-up beauty queen at the college pageant, and she was merely this homely old maid of 50 who was likely never going to find a man who'd ever want her. Andrew laughed. Both of you are something if you ask me. You're like two peas in a pod. You two are so much alike that you never seem to get along or openly agree. 3 inches taller than his wife, he rubbed his perfectly trimmed goatee as he grinned lovingly at her. Well, you didn't answer my question, Paris said to her father, ignoring her husband's comment. She began to run her fingers through her freshly permed, mid-length, wavy-styled, dark brown, medium auburn highlighted hair, tossing it a few times as she did. Catching her father's disapproving stare, she quickly stopped. Her father had made it abundantly clear, countless times in fact, just how much he hated when women did things like that. He'd said they were more than aware of what they were doing, most of them merely being flirtatious instead of nervous, as Paris often used as her defense to him, and that it was unladylike and unbecoming of a decent Christian woman. Lawrence nodded, as though he was thanking her for saving him the trouble of having to correct her yet again. My son-in-law and I came here to discuss a few of my legal woes. You know, there are people who don't want to see me re-elected to the Alabama State House of Representatives, so they're coming up with anything they can find to try and take me down this time around. That's what good opponents do. Paris strolled back over to her husband and threaded her arm through his. Well, you can't find a better lawyer than my dear husband here, that's for sure. Well, your dear husband doesn't seem interested in handling my most recent possible problem, so maybe you can help me convince him. Lawrence trained his eyes hard on Andrew. I told you, Pops, Andrew said. There's not much I can help you with. Our firm would be facing a huge conflict of interest if I were to take you on. The other man involved is a liar and a cheat, among other things I'll not say in the company of a lady. Lawrence eased down onto the sofa. He's talking about Reverend Walker, Andrew said to Paris. That's the other guy someone in our firm is already representing on the opposite side. Marshall Walker, the pastor of that church so many flock to, or at least they used to flock to before that other preacher, George Landris, arrived in town. The authorities are trying to say that me and William Threadgill are involved in some kind of bribery scheme or something with Walker. Lawrence waved the thought away. They picked him up and charged him last Friday or Saturday. This is just something the Democrats are trying to cook up, trying to tie me into his misdoings to derail me and my candidacy. They're just upset and likely desperate right about now. Can you blame them for being upset? Paris said. Everybody I know who's heard you switched parties is boiling mad. I've never voted for a Republican before in my life, but now that you've switched, in midstream I might add, I'll either have to vote Republican this time around, vote against you, or not vote at all. I'm still the same person I was before I decided to switch parties, Lawrence said, looking up at his daughter. But you, of all people, know the district I represent has become much wider now, and despite our racial advancements, perceived or otherwise, this is still Alabama.